It started like any other quiet weekend morning in our new neighborhood. My teenage son had just moved in with me, settling into what we hoped would be a peaceful new chapter. He was helping unpack a few things, tossing a basketball around in the driveway and getting to know the place. It's nothing out of the ordinary. But apparently, for one neighbor, it was more than she could handle. She came storming over, sunglasses on, clipboard in hand, acting like she owned the entire block. You know the type every neighborhood has at least one. The infamous HOA Karen. Without a proper hello or even a chance to talk, she launched into a rant about unauthorized occupants, violations, and how she didn't recall approving my son. Mind you, this is my house. Paid for, paperwork in order. I calmly tried to explain, but she wouldn't hear it. Before I knew it, she pulled out her phone and said the words that made me stop cold. "I'm calling 911 now." Here's where it gets interesting. She had no idea who she was talking to. She didn't know my background, didn't ask. She didn't recognize me from any HOA meetings or community gatherings. She just assumed, like people like her often do. She thought she was about to cause trouble, but when the patrol car rolled up and she realized who I was, her face said it all. She didn't just freeze. She crumbled. What happened next? Well, let's just say the entire neighborhood saw a side of her they hadn't seen before. And what started as an overreaction turned into something much bigger one that exposed more than just a misunderstanding. So buckle up, because this story doesn't end the way you think it does. Now, before all this drama unfolded, let me back up and give you a little context. We'd only been in the neighborhood for a few weeks. I moved here after a long transfer process and was finally ready to settle down. My son had been living with his mom in another state, but due to some personal changes, he came to stay with me full-time. Nothing strange about that. Just a father and son trying to adjust to a new normal and keep things low-key. The house we moved into, it's in one of those tightly run suburban communities. You know, the kind, perfect lawns, matching mailboxes, and a homeowners association that takes itself way too seriously. From the minute we arrived, I could feel eyes on us. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured it was just curiosity, new faces in a familiar place. But Karen, she wasn't just curious. She was watching. From across the street, behind those thick curtains, always pretending to be gardening when we came outside. My son noticed it too. He asked me once, "Dad, why does that lady always look mad when I walk by?" I brushed it off. I wanted to believe it wasn't what I thought it was. She never introduced herself, never said welcome. But somehow, she had already decided we didn't fit in her perfect little plan. And when she saw my son, just a kid, mind you, moving boxes and playing music from his phone, she assumed the worst. That phone call to 911 wasn't out of concern. It was control. She wanted to make a statement, flex whatever power she thought she had. But the part she didn't expect, I wasn't just a concerned parent. I was the new police chief. And the moment she realized that, the whole energy shifted. But trust me, the real story hadn't even started yet. The moment that patrol car pulled up, Karen's whole body language changed. She was standing tall before, arms crossed like she was ready to run the show. But when the officer stepped out, gave me a nod, and addressed me as chief, you could almost hear the air leave her lungs. She froze mid-sentence, phone still in her hand, eyes darting between me and the patrol car like she was trying to figure out what just happened. But I didn't say a word. I let the silence sit. It said everything the officer on duty gave me. A quick run-down standard procedure when a 911 call comes in. Karen tried to shift the tone fast, suddenly calling it a misunderstanding and saying she just wanted to check on things. But the story had already gotten out. A few neighbors had come outside during the commotion. You could feel the tension spread, and it wasn't just about her anymore. People started talking. Turns out, Karen had a bit of a history. She'd filed multiple complaints in the past year over noise, over suspicious guests, even over parked cars not being the right color for the neighborhood aesthetic. The HOA board never took real action, but folks were getting tired of her antics. Still, no one had called her out publicly. Not until now, behind the scenes, something else was brewing. My son started getting side glances at the community park. One neighbor's kid stopped playing with him, no explanation. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then a letter showed up in our mailbox. No return address. One line written on plain paper. Watch who you let in. That's when I knew this wasn't just a case of Karen being petty. There was something deeper, something ugly. And if I was going to protect my son and stand up for what was right, I had to figure out who else was pulling the strings as days went by. The tension in the neighborhood grew thicker, almost like a storm about to break. Karen kept up her silent campaign. Quiet complaints slipped to the HOA board. Strange looks from neighbors. Even a few subtle warnings when my son tried to join community events. It was clear she wasn't done making trouble. But what surprised me most was how many people seemed to be quietly siding with her. Not openly, but enough to make my son feel unwelcome. Enough to create a wall between us and what should have been a fresh start. One afternoon, I caught sight of Karen whispering to another neighbor, her tone low but sharp, approached, hoping to clear the air. Instead, I got the cold shoulder and a warning. You don't belong here. That phrase echoed louder than I expected. It wasn't just about rules or HOA regulations anymore, it was personal. Then the anonymous letters didn't stop. More showed up on our windshield, slipped under the door. Each one more threatening than the last, with vague threats about keeping things in order and knowing your place. The community I thought would be a refuge felt like a trap. And as the local police chief, I was caught between two worlds, one where I had to uphold peace, and another where my own family was under siege. I reached out to the HOA board, hoping to bring some reason, but the responses were slow, vague, and filled with the same thinly veiled biases. It became clear that Karen wasn't acting alone. There was a network behind her neighbors who didn't want us here, and who were willing to do whatever it took to push us out. One night, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my son came home shaken, refusing to say what happened. His silence spoke volumes. I knew then the conflict was reaching a breaking point. And whatever came next could change everything, not just for us, but for the whole neighborhood. The question was, how far would they go? And how ready was I to fight back? Just when I thought we had hit rock bottom, something happened that changed everything and made me realize this wasn't just about a neighborhood feud anymore. One evening, while going through some paperwork in my home office, I noticed an unfamiliar name on the HOA's meeting minutes, a name I hadn't seen before, but one that kept popping up in connection to Karen. Curious, I dug a little deeper, and what I uncovered sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just some petty grudge or a battle over property rules. Karen was linked to a local group pushing for control over the entire neighborhood, with plans that went far beyond keeping lawns neat or blocking new residents. There were rumors of real estate deals, power plays, and even attempts to influence who could live here, people like my son, who didn't fit their mold. It was a web of influence that had been quietly growing, and I had just stumbled right into the middle of it. Meanwhile, the anonymous threats escalated. Our mailbox was vandalized, and my son's bike was found damaged outside. The community that was supposed to be safe was turning into a hostile zone. I started getting calls from concerned neighbors, some who sympathized but were too afraid to speak up. Others warned me to back off, hinting that the people behind Karen had more than just HOA rules on their side. At the same time, Karen herself seemed different, less confident, more calculating. I caught her watching me one afternoon from her window, a strange look in her eyes like she was planning her next move. The power struggle wasn't just about property anymore, it was personal. And it was clear the stakes were rising. The question now wasn't just how to protect my son or keep the peace, it was how deep this went. And what I was willing to do when the battle for the neighborhood's future turned ugly. The night I decided to confront Karen directly, everything came to a head. I knew I couldn't let the tension keep growing, putting my family at risk and letting this toxic power play continue. I knocked on her door, expecting resistance, maybe even anger. Instead, she opened it with a cautious look, like she wasn't sure if I was friend or foe. I laid everything out: the threats, the damage, the division she was causing in the neighborhood. I told her that I understood there were bigger things at play, but this wasn't the way. At first, she tried to deny it, but when I mentioned the evidence I'd found, linking her to the group pushing out families like mine, her composure cracked. She confessed that she was scared of losing control and of the neighborhood changing in ways she couldn't manage. Just as I thought we might find some ground to settle this, the unexpected happened. The door behind her suddenly opened, and a figure stepped out to another neighbor I recognized. Someone quiet but powerful in the HOA. It turned out Karen wasn't acting alone. She was just a piece in a much larger scheme to monopolize the community and keep it exclusive. The surprise was that this person had been watching me too, waiting for a chance to silence any opposition. But I wasn't about to back down. Using my position and connections, I exposed the entire network to the HOA board and the local community. The truth spread fast. Karen and the others faced consequences, fines, restrictions, and community-led meetings to rebuild trust and inclusivity. In the end, my son was welcomed back, neighbors apologized, and the neighborhood slowly started to heal. Yet, as the dust settled, a new letter arrived, this time signed with just one word: watch. It was a chilling reminder that even when battles seem won, the fight for what's right is never truly over. After everything that happened, life in the neighborhood began to change, slowly but surely. The HOA board, now aware of the hidden agendas and the toxic behavior that had taken root, started working with the community to make things right. Open forums were held where neighbors could speak freely, and the old power dynamics began to dissolve. Karen and the others faced real consequences, and many who had stayed silent finally found their voices. It was clear that change wouldn't happen overnight, but at least the foundation for a healthier, more welcoming neighborhood was laid. For my son, the difference was even more profound. The cold shoulders turned into smiles, and hesitant waves became genuine friendships. He started joining community events again, this time with less worry and more confidence. It wasn't just about fitting in anymore, it was about belonging. And that made all the difference. Personally, the experience was a powerful reminder of how important it is to stand up for yourself and your family, even when the odds feel stacked against you. Being the police chief wasn't just a job title, it was a responsibility to protect the community in every sense, including from the quiet battles behind closed doors. The story showed me that sometimes the biggest challenges come from where you least expect them, and that courage means facing those challenges head-on. But the final note, the mysterious letter signed "Watch," served as a reminder that vigilance is key. Even in the most peaceful places, tensions can simmer beneath the surface. It's up to all of us to stay aware, to build bridges instead of walls, and to fight for neighborhoods where everyone feels safe and welcome. Because, in the end, community isn't about control, it's about connection. And that's a lesson worth remembering.